Hello and welcome everyone, this is Calebovitsch coming to you with another episode of Deck Check. For the past dozen or so episodes, I have been focusing mostly on the Throne format. Now, with the recent ECQ that was dominated by Xenon and Rakano, I thought to myself, it's time to take a short break from that format, especially that the next big tournament is apparently going to be in the new Expedition format. And by new, I mean with Argent Depths, with Echoes of Eternity, without the whole Flame of Zolta, just some cards from that one. And especially after the recent balance patch in which cards such as Gentle Grazer and Trickshot Ruffian and Curtain Call were hit. So I wanted to look at the Expedition format, at a specific deck that looks like a meme deck, but you might not believe that it is actually working. It is actually a working one. Somewhat. It is not tier 1, but it is going to be interesting in a silent and deadly way. Stay tuned. As far as the Expedition format goes and my understanding of it, we are seeing a lot of mono and 2 faction decks, with more than 2 factions being there from time to time, but yeah, we can focus on being mono fire, we can focus on being mono justice, we can focus on being mono primal, mono shadow, even mono time. And well, we haven't seen such a format in a long while where actually single faction decks are running wild. What I wanted to do did not start as a mono time deck or almost mono time deck, but ended up being so. How this started was several weeks or even months ago. I was trying to create a Combri deck based around the card Lurking Raptors. It is a 2-costing time dinosaur. It's a 2-cost 6/6 that says Lurking Raptors can't attack the enemy player or block. So, what can it do? Well, first of all, you can block incoming relic weapons, and believe you me, this is sometimes enough, especially in some specific matchups. Also, if you give this unit Killer from a card such as, what's it called? Predator's Instinct. Yes, I am not prepared. Predator's Instinct. Then you can just killer away an enemy unit. Also, you can imbue it, and you can do a ton of things about it, including but not limited to just silencing this unit and attacking with a 6/6. Just attacking. So this means that, well, usually how this works is you have a small unit, you play a card on it to make it bigger. Here it's kind of the other way around. You have a bigger unit, but you have to play another card to use that unit. Kind of, sort of. And this is how this deck started. Well, going through a lot of the cards in Eternal Card Game for when it comes to time up to Echoes of Eternity, we have not seen a ton of cards that you want to have silenced yourself. Using silence, and you're gonna know it if you're playing ladder or especially if you're playing draft, silence has been more and more important in this game, given a lot of synergies are out there, given that well, there are a lot of entomb effects. Revenge is back, literally. So more often than not, when you're thinking about silencing units, you're thinking about silencing your opponent's units, the enemy player's units, so they cannot use their abilities, etc., etc. On again, off again, you might have thought about silencing your unit that was cursed with a permafrost or another curse, just to silence the attacks on that one. So it happened from time to time. But we did not have many cards such as Lurking Raptors that just you cannot use this, that just say you cannot use this card unless it has been silenced. And that is what I wanted to do. But prior to Argent Depths, we only had Lurking Raptors and we only had World Shaper's Staff that gave us a Prism Golem. But the unit with the staff was not supposed to die, because then Prism Golem just dies. So you have to silence the Prism Golem for it to be a 7/7 and not to die to you having a lot of influence, but then another one wand comes, etc., etc. Fortunately, in Argent Depths, we have received Prism Golem as a card in and of itself. We don't need World Shaper Staff to play this one out. So this is a 3 costing 7/7 golem that says -2/-2 for each type of influence you have. And if you have played at least some expedition, you have probably seen a lot of these in monofaction decks where you're just paying 3 to play a 5/5, and that is amazing, and that is a very good payoff for playing monofaction decks. It is, in my opinion, much better payoff than Seal of Devotion or Veteran Mercenary in the past. That is for sure. So right now, if you're talking about silencing your own units, you have those Lurking Raptors, a 2 costing 6/6, and you have Prism Golems, a 3 costing 7/7s. Well, if this was a monofaction deck, you wouldn't even need to silence it, but it's a 2-faction deck, so getting it from a 3/3 to a 7/7 is a huge buff, especially that it's a perma buff, a permanent buff. But also, we have received yet another card that could do well with just not having any card tax, and that is Epoch Infestation. And if you thought that Time had big units, well, you haven't seen a 5 costing 10/10 Clockroach, like a Clockroach army in and of itself. It has a lot of text. It says, this can't attack or block unless you have played 2 or more spells or Clockroaches this turn. Also Surge, which means each time you gain an influence, move each spell and Clockroach in your deck up 1 card. Well, it is better if it's silenced, but you have other ways of using it even without your silence, and I'm going to get to them later. So these are your self-silence targets. So how do you silence those units? Well, you have the obvious card that is just an amazing card, but you've already been playing it if you've been playing Combray, and it is in Expedition now, and that is Desert Marshal, a 2 costing Combray 2/2 Gunslinger with Ambush that says summon, you may silence another unit. The thing about Ambush, and you might know this if you have been playing Xenon Ambush decks recently, especially pre-nerf, pre-July 2020 nerf of several cards, you know that Ambush does not have the same response windows as fast spells or such effects have. You cannot play Ambush if you're attacking and the opponent blocks. You cannot play an Ambush unit. It works the other way around. If the opponent attacks, you can play an Ambush unit. So if you're attacking with a 3/3 Prism Golem and the opponent blocks with a big unit, you cannot silence it with your ambushing Desert Marshal. You have to use something else. But if your opponent is attacking, you can ambush your Desert Marshal, silence your Prism Golem, and block with it. And there you go. So that is a small thing that you should remember. But let's get on to some other cards. There is another thing, and you might know this one from back in Shavka's Song metagame, pre-nerfed Endra, when it still cost 2 and only had a double fire influence. Shush used to be 3, now it costs 2 and has been costing 2 for some time now. It is a fast Combray spell that says silence a unit and each copy of it in its owner's hand, deck, and void. So you can just use it on 1 Lurking Raptors that you have in play and keep playing them from your hand. Or mid-combat, if for example you're attacking with your Prism Golem or Sandstorm Titan or what have you, and the opponent is playing time and response with the obvious Desert Alchemist, Deadly Ambush, and blocks with it, you can shush all of those, and your Deadly Ambush problems go away. Same goes for Scorpion Wasp and other ambush units. So there is that. In Echoes of Eternity, we've also seen the junior version of Shush, that is Deafening Word. This card has not really seen play, but I believe 2 additional copies of this card are enough to get the inner combos of this deck working. It is a 1 costing Justice fast spell that says something similar, silence a unit, and each copy in its owner's hand, deck, or void, but this one has a cost barrier of 3 or less. So you can silence your own Lurking Raptors or your own Prism Golems, or you can silence your opponent's Desert Alchemists and, well, just annoying stuff. And remember, you're doing it to all future copies that you're gonna see. And given the current, as I said in the beginning, given the current metagame and the trend of units having better abilities than stat lines, well, outside of time, like Epoch Infestation, well, yeah, this is something you might want to do on your own units, or you might want to do it on your opponent's units. So even if you don't have Lurking Raptors or Prism Golem, you still can use Deafening Word and or Shush to a good effect. All right, so let's go through the rest of the list. Well, as far as spells go, this is not an aggressive deck. This is more like a mid-range tempo deck that if the opponent doesn't know what you're running, you can sometimes ambush them. Well, not maybe by the ambush keyword, but by shushing Lurking Raptors pre-block and just blocking with them, and then starting to attack the opponent with 6/6s and 7/7s and 10/10s, just making use of the huge beef that you have in time and you had in time since the beginning of this game. One thing you can add to this list is Predator's Instinct. That is a 1-costing time spell that says give a unit killer. And why do I want to have this in my deck? Well, that is another way you can use Lurking Raptors if you haven't drawn any silences. You just pay 2 for Raptors, you pay 1 to give it killer, you use the killer on to just remove your opponent's biggest threat, and there you go. Problem solved, at least for now, and you can wait for your silence to allow Lurking Raptors to attack again. Also remember, these can attack sites, so still there is that. And also these save you from being hit in the face by relic weapons. Epoch Infestation also can be triggered. Well, you don't have many more Cockroaches in your deck aside from additional copies of this card. But if you play 2 spells, you can attack with this. So what you can do is play Time Etchings, the 1-costing time spell that says draw a time sigil from your deck. If you have at least 4 time influence while playing this, you may exhaust a time unit to swap a card from your hand with a time card from your market. So you're playing those etchings, and you're grabbing a spell from your market like Swirl the Sands or Striking Snake Formation. You play that, and you are able to attack with Epoch Infestation. If you play Striking Snake Formation, you can kill her with Epoch Infestation as well. Also, Striking Snake Formation in the market also turns on all your units and allows you to take control of almost any board states, especially stalled ones. Alright, so there's not a lot of spells here, there are not a lot of buffs, but as I said, these are not small to medium-sized creatures or units that need buffs. These are huge units that need silences to allow them to attack, but don't tell anyone. Wait, so why am I making this video if I don't want to tell anyone? Never mind. Let's talk about all the other cards. So you have your usual 4 copies of Desert Alchemist, and this is an amazing time card. It is a 2-costing 2/1 Deadly Ambush Mage. And this would make this card good enough. This is like similar to a Scorpion was. But also on summon, you get to Plunder, which means you may transform a power card in your hand into a treasure trove if you're flooded, or a non-power card into a sigil of its faction. If it's a multi-faction card, you have a 50-50% chance of it being the sigil of one of these 2 colors. And unfortunately, with most of the green cards in this deck being double, well, you're just tossing a coin here. Desert Marshals and Lurking Raptors you've seen. 4 copies of Pesky Seedling. Now, this card used to be Dawnwalker. The 3-costing double time 4/1 Overwhelm Radiant that said if you have at least 4 time influence, when you play a unit with 5 attack or more, play Dawnwalker from your Void exhausted. And this with Predator's Instinct and you having a ton of units that have 5 attack or more that you're playing and getting Dawnwalker back, etc, etc. So I thought to myself, okay, Dawnwalker is an amazing unit to play in this deck. But if you play at least against any shadow decks, they can Blight Moth it away, give it -1/-1 permanently, or just your whole slew of Radiants. If you're playing against fire, they can play chemical rounds on it and decay it away. And there are lots of other ways for your Dawnwalkers not to be as great as they were in the past. That's why I went away from them and towards Pesky Seedlings. 3-costing, double time, 2 3s, a Mandrape with Killer. On summon, you get to increase the cost of a unit in the enemy player's hand by 1. Also, as a bonus, you get to see all the units that the opponent has in hand. So you know if they have any Upsats or Severance or what have you, or rather, what have they. But also this has Corrupted too, which means when it dies, you get an all-3 shade with an effect pay to and sacrifice to do the increasement once again. This is a flex slot in this deck, as this deck has a ton of units, and if you can think about any other good 3-drop, sure, by all means do. Prism Golem we have seen, 4 copies of Sandstorm Titan, the 3 costing double time 5/6 Sentinel with endurance that says units can't fly. Given that in this deck your units aren't flying, this is a very beneficial effect. In one of my previous versions of the deck, I had a couple of non-bows. Instead of time etchings, I was actually running Fearless Crescendo, the Justice fast spell that allowed you to access your market and gave one of your units flying. At one point, I remember I even gave Sandstorm Titan flying, so he said flying endurance units can't fly, so he was very much hating himself at that point, I think. Anyway, huge unit, and we are going for all the beef that we can, so that's why it's here. Next up, Upsat the Savior. The 4 costing with 6/4 Radiant with 5 time influence required, and that is also why we're running 4 time symbols in this deck. It is after the nerf, it is a 6/4 instead of a 6/5. You still get to gain 1 health each time the enemy player plays a unit, but on summon you only get to silence each single faction unit in the enemy player's hand. Well, at least you're not silencing their Prism Golems back into 7/7s, because, well, silencing your own Prism Golems is okay. Your opponent's not a great maneuver. Anyway, Upsat, as you probably know, was a huge mainstay in the Throne metagame a couple of weeks ago. And if you are playing against an Upsat deck, you are actually very happy, because you're stuck with your Lurking Raptors in hand, and your opponent is playing Upsat. And, well, they are not they are just saying oops, because right now you have a 2 costing 6/6 and a 5 costing 10/10 that you can just run into play and run your opponent over. And that's it. So you playing Upsat good, opponent playing Upsat against you, usually good as well. Epoch Infestations, I've already talked about that, and the top end of this deck. And here you can also use other 6 costs in time, because there are several that are very good. I wanted to use these, the Predatory Carnosaurs, the 6 costing triple time 5/6 killer dinos, because they're just great. But you can also use Tuvon, the Skybreak Giant. I believe he's French from origin, from the name. At least that's why I keep calling him Tuvon with an accent. Anyway, you can use these, or you can use almost any other 6 costing time unit that is amazing in Expedition. For example, Grot of Stranger. And that's it. I mean, I was using Grot of Stranger in the past as well. If you're you can use Champions of Progress. These are 6 costing 12/12s, because usually you have a lot of time influence. So you can use those as well. I've already been through spells. Now when it comes to the power base, unfortunately, we don't have Silexes in Combray yet. We do have 4 seats, we do have 4 vows, and I am running 2 Justice Sigils, so right now we are at just 10 Justice Sources, with the potential of playing Desert Alchemist on one of these. I could theoretically add 1 or 2 more instead of the Time Sigils, but I also want to have Upsat on curve. If you skip on the Upsat, or if you are playing more Justice cards, well, then you can just get rid of your time. If you're not playing Upsats, you can get rid of time symbols. You can just run more Justice Sigils then. But in this version, I believe this is good enough. Obviously, you want to start playing the game with playing just time sources, because you're running Prism Golems as 5/5s, not as 3/3s then. And at that moment, you don't need to silence them. Last thing to check is the market from time etching. So we are running time cards. Then we have Swirl the Sands, the 3 costing time fast spell that says put an enemy relic, curse, or unit with flying on the bottom of its owner's deck. So it takes care of a lot of huge shadow threats and World Pyres, etc. We have Grottov's Burden, the 5 costing triple time relic that is very end game. Your single faction units have exalted, and you have a lot of those. But also you can pay 3 for Spellcraft and play Bury the Past, putting a unit or relic on the bottom of its owner's deck. And later in the game you get to pay 5 to draw a card. If it's a single faction unit, you get to play it. Plain and simple, this is your end game. 1 copy of Shinra Speaks, you just get to kill all units, and on Decimate you get to silence and kill all units instead. Striking Snake Formation, you give all your units Killer permanently. It is a 5 costing double time spell, and you're just sweeping up the opponent's board with your Epoch Infestations, Upsads, Sandstorm Titans, Lurking Raptors, etc. And a proactive card in Tuvon, a 6 costing triple time 7/7 Overwhelm Ambush Giant that also allows you to pay some power to draw cards and make him bigger. Alright, so that's the theory. Now I'm gonna show you several games, and at the end we're gonna get back here and talk about the deck some more. And we have our first match against RJ Koog. This hand has a turn 3 play, but we are kind of stuck. We cannot play Upsad because we already have Justice Sigil as one of our sources, so I believe this is a redraw, especially given the number of 2-drops we are running. This is slightly better. We are missing Justice for the Shush on our Lurking Raptors, but the hand is still quite okay, as we can just play Raptors on turn 2, or play Desert Alchemist on turn 2. Desperate Courier and a Xenon start from the opponent. Time symbol is okay. I was thinking about just running Desert Alchemist and plundering Epoch Infestation because we are low on power, turning that into a Sigil. We have another Desert Alchemist, which means we can attack with ours. Or we can just play the Raptors and just be done with it. Another Raptor. So I think we can just attack with a 2/1. If they want to play their own Desert Alchemist, I'm fine with that. After the combat, we're gonna just play Sandstorm Titan. Oops, that would have been much better here, obviously, but Sandstorm Titan is great as well. Oh my goodness, it has come to the time where Sandstorm Titan is not your best 4-drop. Oh my goodness. He's great. Sewer Crocodile. Huh, interesting. Fortunately, there is a Seed of Progress here, so we get our green. We can play Shush on our 6/6. Attack with it. But remember, Shush also silences the copy in our hand. I was just thinking whether to Shush their Crocodile, but it has Decay, not Deadly, so we don't need to mess with it. So just running that. So there's 1 Shush for 2 dinos. That is, I would say, card advantage, but it's actually card disadvantage. It is very effective though. And in the end, opponent wants to play Crack the Earth. It costs less, because this is my turn. And I don't believe they have anything in the market for that, because, well, everything in their market costs 1 less as well. And we're playing the second copy of Lurking Raptors, and we're quite happy here. I mean, this is a huge board already. And a third copy of Raptors, oh my goodness. Lurking Raptors Delight. Yeah, Desert Alchemist, finally something the opponent can do to kill our unit. Sure, and the other one gets chumped. Yeah. Okay. So what? We just play the third one? Yeah, why not? 2 costing 6/6. Gigantosaur. Ayan. Well, fortunately those are Decay and not Deadly. Here I also want to leave Desert Alchemist in hand for a combat trick, or for a moment where we can just eat a power. And here I was thinking that I could draw with the treasure trove that we're getting off of this power, we could draw into Predator's Instinct and use that somehow to our advantage, but we have not. So we're just attacking with the 6/6s once again. One becoming a 5/5 now. All right. So let's just keep attacking with the 6/6. Opponent, did you have enough? Playing second justice because we have one double justice card in the market. And 6 time is enough, and we're not running any X time cards. And that's it for the opponent. All right. I believe that was a bit premature, but let's head on to game number 2. For the second match, yeah, this hand is a toss. This is just top hand without any beginnings. This is more like it. And I'm just going to start on time etching is giving me a time sigil, so I can play Prism Golem on turn 3 as a 5/5. I don't want to maximize it. Seed of Progress. I could play Seed of Progress, but I don't want to. Also, I can use Cambrai Vow to give us a time source now. I can also turn one of the time sigils into a treasure trove now because, well, 4 and drawing a card, and we have enough to play already. So I don't believe we want to get flooded later in the game. I was actually thinking about the other one, but still. Alright, so we're attacking, playing another time and playing a 5/5. Your move, opponent. Because right now we're just mono time. Let's see what they have. Double Oopsat and Severn of the Dark. Okay, so, well, they could play one Oopsat anyway on turn 4, so let's get rid of Severn over here. And I believe next turn I will just want to play Shush and Predator's Instinct on my Prism Golem, kill their Oopsat, attack them for 4 down to 12, and just keep the beats on going on till the very end. So yeah, Seed of Progress. Silencing the golem. Remember not to do it the other way around, because if you give it killer first and then you silence it, well, then your killer goes away. And you're just down a card and very sad and can't do much aside from just attacking there. Right now, as I said, we're attacking. We don't have much left in hand because this is kind of an all-in deck. And right now we are all in. We know what the opponent has. They have another Oopsat that isn't doing anything. But what we can do is attack with the Golem and the Deadly. They either lose their unit or they take 9. Alright, let's grab 5th time to play Oopsat. Silence their hand, and this is almost over. Yep, a 3rd Oopsat. Opponent, are you upset? Let's draw a card. It could be killer, and this time it is. And, well, opponent is at 10. I could just go here and attack them for 15, but I wanted to go for the maximum value and exact lethals, and yeah, there we go. Okay, on to game number 3. Alrighty, yeah, this is a quick toss. Only 1 power? No. There are some limits. Yeah, this is a worse hand. Well, maybe not worse, okay? 1 power is worse, but... Oh, here's something. And we can start on the symbol. I mean, we're not running any 1-drop units anyway. Alright, primal symbol. Seems the opponent's playing monoprimal. I mean, I know the opponent is playing monoprimal because I've seen this game before. Yeah, let's just go for green. Let's go for a top-decked Shush. And turn 3, we are already attacking with a 6-6, and if the opponent plays something, we can give our unit killer and get rid of that. Also, if we draw any other lurking Raptors, they are silenced already. So yes, the opponent is at, well, not a lot. We've already attacked them for 12, and they are just drawing cards. Another primal symbol, sure. Let's attack. Let's play Epoch Infestation to assert dominance. If we draw power, we can go Desert Alchemist, transmute that to a Treasure Trove, play Predator's Instinct on our Desert Alchemist, killer their blocker, and attack for 16. That was a very quick game, so let's go for another one. Alright. We have a turn 2 Alchemist, we have a turn 3 Golem. This is a keeper, especially that the Golem is a 5/5 now. And we have the little one, the little seed. Another primal symbol. Is it another monoprimal? Yes, it is. But this time they're starting on turn 2 with a Sky Serpent. Alright, so could go Lurking Raptors, but we don't have any silence. Instead, I'm going to go Desert Alchemist and turn the 6-drop into a power source. Or the Raptors into a power source, one or the other. Sure. I mean, we do have Sandstorm Titan, so that card shouldn't be a problem. They have a Prism Golem of their own, sure. Oh, I chose Seedling. That's interesting. Apparently I wanted to keep both the Raptors and Carnosaur up. I opted not to attack because the opponent can just perma-freeze the Golem and attack us for 5, and given that they are the aggressors at this point, I wanted to just double up on defense. Especially that next turn with Sandstorm Titan, yeah, we will be able to defeat them and stop their incoming onslaught. Our golems are turned to seed, okay. We still have a blocker here. Attack first, so the opponent doesn't know what we're doing, what we're following it up with. Sandstorm Titan, praying they don't have another turn to seed. Well, they usually do, but still. One can hope, one can dream, and one can have many seeds. Yeah, given that they have a flyer and we don't have any more Sandstorm Titans, I opted to block. Another Carnosaur, yeah, that's bad. Yeah, play Seedling. Frostbite Elemental doesn't do much. And Helio, yeah, they will have to wait on Helio. Ice Bolt, thank you. Let's get some justice in here. I mean, we don't have Prism Golems anymore. Yeah, so this is a chump block. Frostbite Elemental, but nothing is frozen yet. Lurking Raptors, time symbol. So we will have predatory Carnosaurs going starting next turn. But what we can do and what we want to do here is just ambush the 5/5, right? So before blocks, we're shushing Raptors. They are able to block now. We're blocking the 5/5. And now we can become the aggressor. Another Prism Golem, sure. So let's go Carnosaur. Let's kill the flyer. I'm not attacking with the 6/6 yet because, well, they could just perma-freeze our only blocker and take us down to 1. And they do have a 6 costing Helio in hand, and they drew another one. Fortunately, we have a lot of killer here. We can killer the 5/5. Even Pesky Seedling can get rid of Helio. And we can attack for 11, and the opponent cannot even block. And next turn we have lethal, so, well, that's a lot. Especially that we have Predator's Instinct to put on one of our units, if need be. Another Helio, still not the one that is more expensive. So here we can go Instinct on the 2/3. Killer Helio, attack for 16. That is huge tempo. Alright guys, enough of these beatings. Let's head on back to the studio and talk about the deck some more. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Silent, but deadly. Yes, a lot of big time units. And if you thought time units were big in the past, well, now they could be even bigger. They don't even have to be timed, they can be neutral. I sincerely hope you enjoyed this episode of Deck Check, and remember, if you did, click on subscribe. This deck has a couple of question marks here still. For example, those deafening words. Do you really need them? Or maybe you want to use something else. And by something else, I was trying out from Anguish. This could be a solution to some cards. Kill a unit with 5 attack or more, it gets void bound, and you don't care about the transmute. As far as Pesky Seedlings go, they could go, but I believe for the curve you would need some other 3-drops, especially time ones. And you have some options. I mean, you could go for Amber Acolytes just to ramp yourself up. You could go for Rectifiers if you want more silence. You could go for Scorpion Wasps. You could go for... what else is good here? Strange Duelists. In the past I also had Garrett Throne Guardians in this deck. When 1 or more units would be silenced, Garrett gets +3 attack instead. And I thought this would be more for the silenced tribal effect. Because if you don't have your Raptors or your Prism Golems or your Epoch Infestations, then your silence effects are not as good as they could be. But the fact is, you want to silence, if you don't want to silence your units, you want to silence your opponent's units. So you don't need Garrett, and he was more of a hindrance than help, honestly. So yeah, there are some options. You could go for a Strange Duelist, maybe. I mean, this one does have pay for and exhaust to silence a non-stranger unit. Could be yours, could be your opponent's. You could go for Combri Healers if you have problems in the early game, as you gain some health and your units get bigger, etc, etc. So there are some options here, and well, I'm just gonna leave you with this, and we'll see you, or rather, you can see me next week on another episode of Deck Check.